So let's take a look at the good angels. When Satan fell from heaven, he took a third of the angels in heaven with him. And the angels are divided into good or holy angels, and the fallen angels, often referred to as devils or demons. And Satan is a created being and was perfect when he was created. And then because iniquity was found in him, we see his fall in Ezekiel chapter 28, verses 13 and 15. The Apostle John identifies Satan as a fallen angel who will be cast out of heaven, along with other disobedient angels in Revelations. In Revelation 12, verses 7 through 9. And these verses tell us that Satan and Michael are angels. Michael is the leader of the good angels, and Satan has the fallen angels under his command. All angels, good or evil, are originally created to worship God, according to Hebrews 1, verse 6. And the Bible makes it clear that mankind is not to worship angels, and that's in Colossians 2, verse 18. Angels have the ministry of carrying out the will of God to man and are known as God's messengers in Hebrews chapter 2, verse 2, and in Psalms 103, verses 21 and 22. It is through prayer that believers can obtain ministration of angels. Matthew 26, verse 53, and Acts chapter 12, verses 5 and 7. So the good angels, also known as holy angels and God's messengers, have been active throughout history and will continue to be. So the good angels minister to Christ. They minister to him by predicting his birth in Luke 1, verses 26 through 33. They announced his birth in Luke 2, verse 13. They protected him as a child in Matthew 2, verse 33. They strengthened him after his temptation in Matthew 4, verse 11. And the good angels prepared to defend him in Matthew 26, verse 53. And they rolled away the stone and announced his resurrection in Matthew 28, verses 2 and 6. They were at the ascension and announced the second coming of Christ in Acts 1, verse 11. They announced the conception of John the Baptist in Luke 1, verse 13 and 36. They will return with Christ at his second coming. That's in 2 Thessalonians 1, verse 7. They spoke to Zacharias, Luke 1, verses 11 through 20. They spoke to Mary, Luke 1, verses 26 through 38. And they spoke to Joseph in Matthew 1, verses 20 through 24. They spoke to the shepherds in Luke 2, verses 9 through 15. They spoke to Cornelius in Acts 10, verses 3, 7, and 22. They spoke to Paul in Acts 27, verse 23. And they spoke to John in Revelation. The good angels or the holy angels are sent to help believers. That's in Hebrews 1:14. They're involved in answering prayer. Acts 12, verse 7. They're sent to give encouragement to believers. That's in Acts 27, verses 23 through 24. They are guardian angels in Hebrews 1, verse 14, and Matthew 18, verse 10. They observe the experience of Christians in 1 Corinthians 4, verse 6, 1 Timothy 5, verse 21. They are interested in the evangelism efforts of mankind. Luke 15, verse 10, and Acts 8, verse 26. They care for believers at death, according to Luke 16:2 and Jude 9. They are sent to deliver the child of God in Acts 5:19, verses 19 and 20. And they have charge of believers in Psalms 91, verse 11. And the angels watch over those that fear them and the little children and protect them in Psalms 34, verse 7, and Matthew 18, verse 10. The angels have joy when one sinner repents. Luke 15, verse 7 and 10. They guard the dead. Luke 16, verse 22. They watch over rulers and nations in Daniel chapter 4, verse 17. They seek to influence the leaders of nations in Daniel 10, verse 21 and chapter 11, verse 1. The angels will be God's agents in the tribulation and will pour out his judgment, according to Revelations 8 through 9 and 16. The angels take vengeance upon those that do not know God and do not obey the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verses 7 through 8. The angels will bring punishment to the unbelievers in Acts chapter 12, verse 23. They will separate believers and unbelievers and gather them up at the harvest at the end of the age. Matthew 13, verse 30. And again, I thank you for your